Today, I review Defiance, the new show on Sci-Fi. For those of you that come across this sometime from now, let it be known that only 5 episodes of Defiance have been released at the point of this review of the show. Now, for anyone that doesn't understand how reviews work, spoilers will be ahead to some degree. So, keep that in mind before you proceed. Now, Defiance is an hour-long show on the Sci-Fi network. Sci-Fi often produces television shows of varying quality. However, so far I've found Defiance to be a fairly well-rendered science fiction show. It's particular interest because it, in some ways, has a lower level of technology than you otherwise would encounter in a science fiction show. It definitely has an aspect of space opera to it. It has a bit of post-apocalyptic element. It also has almost a Wild West feel at times to the show with hyper levels of technology mixed in with it. So it produces an interesting blend. The world has been at the hands of a terraforming incident. From what I have gathered from the show so far, there was an attack by aliens on Earth, and the Earth has been changed, has been terraformed, and that terraforming has produced a number of different new species of animals that have been mutated from the process. The Earth itself looks different. The show takes place in what used to be St. Louis. We can still see the big arch, otherwise it's almost irrelevant. You get into a lot of politics in the show, the human versus human element, and then the various politics of the different species that are introduced through the show. It's also apparently going to be a video game. I don't really know anything about that. An MMO RPG, not something that I'm particularly familiar with, but that is what I have heard. But we're going to be talking specifically about the television show here. I'm going to start off talking about the different actors and my impressions so far. And this is only 5 episodes in. They could go down or up depending on what comes future. So please don't write, oh, in episode 8, he was great. Or how could you like that guy? Didn't you see season 2? 2 years from now. No, I haven't. It hasn't been released yet. I do think that this show will be picked up. I don't know what the ratings are, but the quality of the show is pretty strong. Of course, it being picked up is going to be largely dependent on how much it actually costs to produce the show versus how much revenue it's bringing in, and those are facts I simply don't have. Now, I'm just going to sort of go down the list of them here. You have Grant Bowler, who, I guess he's really the main character in the show. His acting job, he's not a bad actor, but it's they definitely could have found someone who's a stronger actor in the case. I think they didn't really go with, they tried to pick up some, I guess, scraps from the HBO Showtime line. There are some actresses there that have been well established on those shows, but overall I think the quality of actors that they picked up is more indicative to what you would expect on a basic cable show versus something on HBO or Showtime where you have a higher grade overall of actors and actresses. Grant Bowler's character is okay. I do find myself slightly less interested when he's in a scene, so overall I don't feel he adds much to it. I love the way the show started off, and I thought that might have been a more interesting direction to have taken the series when they're out in their roller, which is what they call cars, and him and his adopted daughter are driving around. Another great detail they had is they show like the writing in these other languages there, which is a wonderful detail to help immerse the audience in the subject matter at hand. So I really applaud them on taking that time and effort. A small thing that adds volumes to the show's overall believability. When you render an alien species, you need to bring as many elements in to make it alien, to make it other, to make it different. And to some degrees they've done that. There are some problems here with that as well, and we're going to talk about that to a degree, more so than essentially reviewing episode versus episode. You can kind of watch those yourself and have your own opinion. I think talking about the material overall would provide a bit more of an interesting interpretation. So let's talk about Julie Benz, who played Rita, Dexter's wife, for several seasons of the show Dexter, wife and girlfriend. She's not terrible on the show, but as on Dexter, her acting skills are, she's not a bad actress, but she's not someone that you're like, oh, I gotta tune in to see what she's doing. She doesn't bring it. And on this show, the same thing. There are a number of situations. He's the mayor. There's a number of times it's like, really, that's what the mayor's going to do? It seems like they don't really have a whole lot for her to do, and they try to give her a larger piece than maybe they should. There have been already 5 episodes in, a number of scenes where I'm like, and when you've had more than 2 of those on 5 episodes, that's not good. I have a feeling her character will be one that I find is just poorly written. Overall, of course, that could change. You have Stephanie Leonidas, and I'm sure I'm butchering that. I think it's Greek. I looked up a picture of her, and I couldn't even recognize her. She plays an Arathian who is the adopted daughter of the lawkeeper. So it's an interesting situation. When they open the show up, they show her in a position where she is around others of her kind, and they make the Arathian, they're like depicted as feral, like barbaric biker types of people, and very clannish. Interesting. The picture of her, like, again, I said she looked. I was like, you can't even tell. They're a near human species, which means that they have some cosmetic changes. They don't look quite like people, but they're not wholly alien otherwise. A near human example to, if you haven't seen the show, think about something like a Klingon that looks, it's just a person with a good amount of makeup on, but they're not so far, that they really need full-on masks and all those things. I mean, they do something with her to make her eyes look a good bit different, the whole orbital structure, I suppose. And all of them have red hair, apparently, which is an interesting touch. Otherwise, they appear to just generally be Caucasian in appearance, though with a bit of a ruddy color to their skin, a bit of a tan, which, when I detail one of the other alien types, it makes sense why they wanted to have them a little bit darker. So, with her, she's one of the characters I think comes off the best. I like her portrayal. I like her acting. The looks she does. Acting, a lot of it has to do with right here. It's not necessarily what you're saying. It's more how you can articulate without saying. And her body language and her facials were very good. I've quite enjoyed her character so far. She's interesting, and overall, I think her acting performance has probably been the strongest, and her character has been the most interesting from my perspective so far. And I would follow it up with Tony Curran's character, who is Dakat Tar. He's the Castathan, and the Castathan are basically like they're almost albino. They have this very, very light yellow hair, and they have like yellowish eyes. They are kind of sleazy, kind of criminalish in a different way than the IRATs. And there's a lot of what sound like almost racial epithets being thrown around. Like, they shorten up the different names, like IRATs and Casties, this is what they call them. And their son is dating a human girl, and he is very, very... The whole species, they look kind of emo, and he is extremely emo in his appearance, which itself is... he's got like a purple streak in his hair. For some unapparent reason, he has a radio station he's running there. His character, the son, not Tony Curran's character, Tony Curran's son's character, is very uninteresting, and I find, I'd prefer that character wasn't on the show at all. I don't think the acting job was that interesting from him, but they show the way they dance, which is very cool. That's another great detail, one of the better details in the show. The script writing itself is pretty strong because they bring in a lot of details. There are a few times where, there's a few eye rolls in there, quite honestly. But overall, that's pretty rare, and the script itself brings forth a lot of details that allow you to suspend disbelief. Or these are aliens. The Castavans themselves, they look way too much like humans. I don't see, outside of the practical cost of having, to do less makeup, to have to render less costumes, I don't see why you would want to make the species, particularly at this point where we have so much CGI, we have so many special effects, both practical and computer, that you can really help to strengthen the look there. I think that sort of 1970s, everybody looks like human approach to sci-fi is very passe, and I really would prefer if they hadn't done that. The 3 species that they have used so far, a lot. The other ones you see kind of around in the in the background, but they don't really have a lot of time. They haven't had a lot of on-air lines. They have one, I'd have to look it up here, but a big kind of Chewbacca-esque ripoff guy that appears to not be able to speak English, as far as I could tell so far, which, again, all the more Chewbacca-ish from him, which I don't think is really a good tact. I would have liked to have seen more really genuine alien-looking aliens. I think that overall presents a higher level of interest. I don't know, and I would like to hear you guys' comments on what you think in terms of the almost human aliens and the extremely near human aliens versus those that are a bit more complex, a bit more different. And I think that you really hit the more difference you have from the aliens. I think the closer you get to science fiction, and the show, I wouldn't quite say it's science fantasy, but it's definitely not anything towards the hard levels of science fiction, particularly in the alien genres. It's pretty soft, pretty space opera-ish, yet on Earth, post-apocalyptic as well. It's an interesting blend of a few different elements, and the terraforming of the world, I think, was just a wonderful idea. They have a big mining company as well, which is run by Graham Greene, whose character he's one of the, I'm kind of reserved so far to see. He's a pretty good actor, but I don't know how interesting his character is going to be. They have sort of a Romeo and Juliet going between he and Tony Curran's characters. His daughter is human, and then Dakat Tar, whose son is a Casti. They have this love, and they're trying to bring them in. There's a lot of racism there that's portrayed, which really helps to add to the show. I think it's interesting, the levels of distrust and the kind of dirtiness on both sides, how they go about the thing. But Rafe owns a mining company, and the mines are very important again because they have terraformed the Earth. So you have interesting explorations going on, and they've already used those to provide additional scenes, interesting other scenes instead of just being out in the wilderness, in the woods, or in the town, which is pretty much everything else takes place. You get to go down there, and you can see like the hell bugs they used, and other, little mutated monsters, essentially, that they can bring out and use as different plot devices or different encounters for the characters to have over the course of the show. So I think that's going to probably continue to be used in a lot of different ways. But you have that political background between the Tactar, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, so I know I'll get like 1,000 people going, hey, it's wrong. But don't worry about that. Worry about this. And that is that his character is... I think he really makes the Castovans and the Arathian are the 2 alien species that they've put at this time most of the work on. A lot of the other alien species, and they call them the Votan. For those of you that don't know, Votan is actually a German pronunciation for the Norse Allfather Odin. I don't know if the producers know that, but Votan is actually a real word. In the real world, it means something else, but they use it for the entire of these different alien species, who are some more or less accepted. Like the Arathian are sort of portrayed as these feral gangsters that you have to kind of look at, like they won't get their kids vaccinated. And I thought that was like a great detail. They bring something like that in. They're distrustful of science, so they're in some ways like less scientific than you would expect an alien species to be that's come across. Whereas the Castavan are very orderly in their society. And they have lots of guilt and shame and bizarre customs to show their standing. And we've seen how that's already manifested. They bring up religion from the different species quite a bit in the show, too, already at this early point, which I think is absolutely wonderful, a great additional touch. I think that those are issues you want to go into in a show like this, to really add flavor to the species. The more flavor they have, the more alien they'll come across. The more alien they come across, the more it's easy to believe them. The more it's easy to believe them, the better the show's going to be. So overall, I'm quite pleased with that area. Now, Tony Curran's wife on the show, Stama Maktar, she's also really, and again, and I saw the picture where she's like black hair, and she's almost not recognizable, but she has this long blonde, like almost platinum blonde color hair, and she's done up in the makeup to look her almost albino in her complexion. She is kind of glamorous and beautiful, whereas Tony Curran's character, he's more kind of an ugly-ish sort of guy. But they kind of show her sort of being a subtle manipulator of him and of the events around them, and they're sort of exposing her as just sort of being the hand inside the glove, the power behind the throne, as they are making more and more moves towards the city council, and eventually, maybe further along. It looks like the cast of Vans, they kind of put them in that flip-flop seesaw role where they'll be like kind of allied to the protagonists at some point, and the protagonists are more like the mayor and the lawkeeper. That's kind of who they seem to have set up as the good guys, I guess we were supposed to relate to. Honestly, I didn't care about either one of their characters at all. So, which puts my viewing into a different perspective. But I think a lot of people will be pretty big fans of the cast of Vans because they come across, while they look pretty much like people, their culture is interesting. They all bathe together, for example. They like the TAC was talking about, like, oh, she wouldn't even bathe with us, like talking about the Yuba girl, and he wasn't happy about that because it's just sort of violating their culture. They're kind of in cultural intolerance, which of course when you have all those cultures smashed against each other, when a first wave generation, you're going to have a lot of that, and it produces a very realistic sociological view of how alien cultures in the stew that they'll put together come across. I think the fact that they don't try to shy away from that and make it too politically correct is going to be a good selling point for the show. Let's see what else we have here. Mia Kirshner, who also played on the show The L Word. I think I absolutely hated her on that show, and I mean to the point like she was almost unwatchable in it. Because Jenny Schechter is her character. On this show she plays a prostitute, or the madam, prostitute/madam. And quite honestly, I find her far more tolerable in this show. But overall, I don't know. I haven't been particularly interested in her character so far. She's also the sister to the mayor of the town. Here, prostitution is legal. Again, giving it more of that sort of Wild West feel to the show. My least favorite actor so far has been Dushane Williams, who plays the deputy under the law enforcer. I think they could have just randomly spun around and pointed to someone to find someone who acts as well as he can. His acting skills were marginal at best. His character is very bland and uninteresting. And of course, there may be some issues with the writing there, but he doesn't have any acting skills that allow him to rise above that. So, quite honestly, I would love to just see his character get written out in one way or another, because when he's in a scene, it's like it's all so stock and so predictable with his behavior, and his acting doesn't do anything to elevate that or to modify it into a way that is going to make it interesting for me. So I'm not interested in that. They also had I'm going to butcher this, and I shouldn't because I'm Irish and this is an Irish name here. It's Fionnuala Flanagan. She played the former mayor, and a lot of people give the current mayor a lot of problems about being the mayor. They act like they're not really trying to put her over in that role. But Flanagan, she's been in a lot of different shows. She was in what was the show? It was in Rhode Island about the gangsters there. Brotherhood, maybe. I think that was it. She was in that. I think she was in Lost. She's doing a lot of stuff, and I mean, she's not a bad actress, but her role just kind of, I don't know. I wasn't interested in her character at all, and hopefully we don't see a lot more of her, but we shall see. So other than the Casavins and the Arath, they had the Indigene, who are in the show to a smaller degree. They've used them a little bit. They also have, let me see if I can find the name here. Oh, the Volge, who are sort of monsterish individuals. But they had this cool battle with the Volge right at the bat. But I mean, they beat them. It was a hard fight, but it wasn't that hard. It wasn't like half the town was decimated or anything. And they beat them. But I think it was kind of a bad idea. They should have. I would have written this story arc to have the Volge either appear. I would probably have that been the cliffhanger on the end of the season. The Volge appear, and oh god, we're going to fight the Volge, and they're going to kill everybody, and then you can bring it back and open up season 2, with the first episode being with the Volge. But they spent that bullet quite quickly, so it already if they try to bring the Volge back, it's well, yeah, we already saw them beat the Volge. Are they going to beat the Volge again? Oh look, they beat the Volge again. So, and again, the fact that they didn't take serious losses. It was pretty minimal losses they took against the Volge. If the Volge had destroyed the town and really destroyed it, or killed half the cast, that'd be one thing. But it was pretty minimal, and overall that makes the recurring threat of them. I don't particularly think that I don't think that they used them well in that approach at all. They also have something called biomen, who are kind of interesting. But again, right off the bat, they used the biomen basically just to put the lawkeeper over and show him how potent and how tough he was. So it made the biomen kind of We've already seen one beat up in a fight against the lawkeeper, so why am I going to be oh no, the biomen are tough? No, I've already seen them already lose, so it makes them less. It's not the way I would have produced the show. I would have these bad guys. You got to put heat on them. You got to make them mean something. You got to make them intimidating. So the audience is ooh, we don't want to mess with that bioman. Oh, he just took this one dude and broke his back, or crippled him up, or killed somebody. And we've seen him as tough, not just he can go there and just turn him off. Because what do you come back to? And you got to tell story after story after story, episode after episode. For a show like this to have a successful run, you need 5 seasons, maybe 4, and it's about 12 episodes a season. That's pretty much what you need. Otherwise, it's just sort of a flash in the pan sci-fi show that who cares about it. But a show like this could really end up having a big following and be of a lot of interest to a lot of people. I think the possibility for storytelling is tremendous in the show. I would like to see them be more careful in their selection of actors and actresses, of getting really high quality people into their shows in the future. With a lot of shows like HBO and Showtime shows, they're a lot more careful about that. They will of course have weaker actors and actresses, and I thought 2 of those ended up on this show. So I would look for those. I would probably look to produce 1 or 2 more main characters. I think a show like this, they need more main characters and maybe less spotlight. I think if they try to put the show on the mayor and the law keeper, that they've made a horrible mistake, because those characters, I don't think they're strong enough actors and actresses to carry a show, and I don't think they're interesting enough characters to carry a show. So I would really like to see more of the IRAS and more of the Casavins. I don't really care to see the humans being the point there. A lot of times science fiction, they're scared to place it on anything but the humans. Oh, well, if we don't put it on humans, people aren't going to be entertained or interested by what we're putting out here. So for me, I find that it's particularly of important interest to make sure that you use those aliens a lot. I don't see any reason that they can't be the main stars of the show, and their culture, the way they present the alien culture overall, is the best part of the show so far, along with the terraforming of the planet, and that's what I want to see them continue to expand on. So that is my review of Defiance overall. I'm continuing to watch it. I've been very entertained by the first 5 episodes. I'm nitpicking here and hitting points that I find problematic, or like to see off, but I don't discourage anyone from watching it. I certainly say give it a watch. Maybe watch the first 3 episodes. You've got to watch this in order. It is a serial. You can't just jump into episode 6. You'll be lost, confused, and you will not like it, because you will not be able to follow the story. You have to watch them in order, and you would definitely if you're seeing this maybe 6 months from now, I would say get a hold of the whole first season on DVD. You're not going to have commercials with that, and they're only going to come out in about 42 and a half minutes per episode, and you can really just knock them out, watch 3 or 4 a day, you hit that marathon style, and you'll be completely caught up by the time season 2 comes out. If season 2 comes out, I don't know if it will. I certainly hope it does. I definitely don't see any reason I wouldn't watch the first season, and I'll make my decision. This first season is only going to be 12 episodes, from what I read. So, for me, I'm definitely invested and interested enough in the show to continue going. Not the best show, not the best science fiction show I've ever seen either, but it's very strong. And science fiction, quite honestly, is not my favorite genre. It's not a genre that I invest too much time in, because typically I find a lot of problems and difficulties to immerse myself in what's happening. With this show, I haven't found that to be the case. So overall, I certainly say give it a shot. Watch the show, and if you like it, let me know. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts, what your feelings on the show are, if you enjoy it or if you don't enjoy it. Either way, that's certainly fair to leave in the comments. So thanks for watching, guys.